thank the Ripon Society and also the Franklin Center for the work that you do in putting on events like this and for opportunities to engage on important public policy issues. So I'm grateful for all of you today. I learned from many of you in the room here in these opportunities to have dialogue and discussion on important issues. So thrilled to be here and thrilled to be with my good friend Raja Krishnamoorthi. We came in at about the same time. We obviously serve on the Select Committee on China. We serve on Intel together. He couldn't get on Ways and Means, or it would have been 3 for 3, but that's all right. But we enjoy, obviously, both being from Peoria, Illinois. Now, I don't know if you know this, Raja. Your high school is playing in the state championship today, Richwoods, at 11 o'clock in Champaign. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, Richwoods Knights, which is in my district, and where Raja was the valedictorian way back when. They're playing in the high school championship today against DePaul Prep.
Wow.
There you go. But we share a commonality of both being raised in Peoria, and Raja's father was a professor at Bradley University for about 40 years, did an excellent job in the engineering department there. Both my parents graduated from Bradley, my wife graduated from Bradley, so we have a lot of commonality. Now, he is a Democrat, I am a Republican, so we do differ on a few things, but we have enjoyed a great working relationship and a friendship in our time in Congress. And obviously, I was thrilled when I was selected to serve on the Select Committee on China by, at the time, Speaker McCarthy. And as many of you know, that was a bipartisan select committee. And we had, I think, over 100 Democrats supported on the House floor. And many of you have observed and watched the committee over the last year plus, almost 15 months now. And it's really been, I think, a worthwhile exercise. It may be the best thing this Congress does in a bipartisan way if you look at the substance of what we've been able to do. If you watch a number of our hearings that we've had, sometimes you don't know who is a Republican and who's a Democrat on the committee in terms of the dialogue and discussion. And we've populated the committee with some really smart, bright members that care deeply about this issue. And I've said many times, I think the thing that the CCP fears the most is bipartisan support against them or working in a constructive way to figure out how we win the strategic competition against the CCP. And so I've been thrilled to be a part of it. I would commend Chairman Gallagher and Ranking Member Krishnamoorthi for the way they've handled the committee in working in a bipartisan way and taking on these issues. As I look at the committee, really two goals. One, exposing the malign activities of the CCP, and whether that's from a national security standpoint, from an economic standpoint, we focused a lot on that. Secondarily, how do you win the strategic competition against the CCP? I think you do that on the economic front. And so how do we think about things differently, whether that's supply chains, whether that's trade, whether that's looking at the mechanisms we have to be engaged on the economic front. And I know many of you in this room care about that. We put out a report at the end of last year, a bipartisan report. We didn't agree on everything, but it gave us kind of a roadmap for how we should move forward in a bipartisan way to do that. Of course, we don't have legislative jurisdiction on the Select Committee, and so working with the committees of jurisdiction, Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, Financial Services, some on Armed Services, on implementing those policies. We've been heavily focused on that moving forward. And so I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I've enjoyed, again, a great working relationship. We still have a lot of work left to do on the Select Committee, but I think we've made a lot of progress and raised the bar a tremendous amount. I know Raj is going to talk about it. When you saw the bill yesterday on TikTok, 50-0, you don't see stuff like that happening very often. And again, it goes to the hard work that's been put in by the chairman and Raj on that. So anyway, I look forward to your questions and comments as it relates to China and our engagement. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Raj.
We were trying to save batteries, guys.
Fiscal discipline. Hey, first of all, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you to Ripon and Franklin. And Darren and I think you've been part of this group a lot longer than I have, but I've really enjoyed my interactions with everybody who attends these events. You bringing people together is really special. It doesn't happen a lot, so thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for attending. I like to say it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be any place they can pronounce my name correctly. This is a true story. When I first ran for office in Illinois, I said, "Hi, my name is Raja Krishnamoorthi." And the person in Chicago looked right back at me, Darren, and said, "Roger Christian Murphy. Very nice to meet you." They said, "I didn't know the Irish made it to India." And so, in any case, it's wonderful to be here. I hail from Peoria, Illinois. My parents were Darren's constituents, and they went to him for constituent services, not me. And so Darren is part of a lineage of public service that's really exemplary. And his father is still a good friend to a lot of us in Congress. He works with us on so many different issues, and of course, Darren is a very close friend and partner on so many items as well. On the Select Committee, I think I associate myself with everything Darren said. I think that this is the most bipartisan, thoughtful, serious committee and endeavor I've been part of. I don't know about you, Darren, but I feel that this is like we are actually doing something that is meaningful, and every day I go, it's like an oasis of thoughtfulness, of intellectual curiosity mixed with debate, civil debate. There is not groupthink on this committee with regard to China. I think that people have different opinions about how to approach the challenges ahead of us. However, what we try to do is we try to identify those areas of commonality and work on those. And then on those areas where we might differ, we try to say, well, look, maybe we need to do a little more fact-finding to figure out what the right answer is and come back to it. And so we've had numerous hearings, numerous investigations, as well as a lot of field exercises. Darren and I were just in Boston to learn about biotech. It was fascinating, a day of learning from people in the industry as well as academics and so forth. We did that in Iowa, we did that in Wisconsin, we did it in Silicon Valley, we did it in LA as well, and New York City as well with Wall Street. And so, we're going to continue to do this, and I'm just really excited about what's to come, and thank you for your interest.
Picking up on the theme you mentioned on bipartisanship, as we're getting closer to the election year, of course, you all, as you mentioned, put out your proposal, and it has a lot of different committees of interest. As we get close to the election year, how do you see that momentum on the bipartisanship, focusing on these China issues, staying, and then as we get into the next Congress, any thoughts and ideas of how you plan to keep the momentum going? So.
I think part of it is we kind of are trying to figure out what is most important and what is most doable, and work on those first. I think the TikTok bill is extremely important for various reasons. And it's something, as you could tell yesterday in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, we got a 50 ayes. I was shocked, although I did not hear a single no in my whipping on the floor of my colleagues. So I thought maybe there's a chance of a really good outcome. But I think it's because of the groundwork of my staff, people like Eden at the back of the room, and just the majority of the minority staff are really excellent. And they have just worked their tails off trying to prepare the groundwork to involve all stakeholders. I think that's how we're going to approach going forward. So I think this TikTok bill, for instance, is a huge priority. The Biosecure Act is a big priority. It got marked up in Homeland Security in the Senate 11-1. I'm not going to tell you who the one person was, but it rhymes with Schman Schbal. And so anyway, it passed out of the Senate. I mean, it's going to pass out of the Senate. It's going to come to the House, and we're going to probably get it out. Most importantly, the White House is very interested in all these things, and the White House said we want to see these bills on our desk. And so just making sure that we spend time on that. I think there's going to be something with regard to outbound investment controls as well. And I think that there's going to be some others where we can opportunistically, join hands with different committees that are already working on things. The double taxation thing is huge, which Darren is helping to lead the way on in Ways and Means, because that's going to help us in attracting more investment from Taiwan here, especially as far as chips and science. There are others as well.
Lance, I would just, your second part of that about what happens if we don't complete everything. I mean, I think we're still trying to figure that out in terms of what happens in the election, but there will be plenty of work still to do with the Select Committee. My hope would be there would be a continuation of that in terms of whether Republicans or Democrats are in charge next Congress. But the interest from the leadership has been so strong. I think they acknowledge the work that we've been doing in a positive way, and I would hope that would continue. I would just say, in terms of outbound investment, I think that's a topic that maybe we don't have full agreement on right now, but is going to be an issue. De minimis is going to be another area that people want to focus on, I know. We've had a lot of feedback from individuals on that. And then on trade, GSP, looking at either where we can do bilaterals. I think the era of multilaterals has gone by the wayside, unfortunately. But where we can figure out our like-minded allies in the Indo-Pacific region that are craving our leadership. When you look at whether it's Japan or South Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, a lot of these countries are craving our leadership there. And so figuring out which, on the Ways and Means Trade Subcommittee, how do we figure out an avenue to make some of those things work, I think is another part of our committee.
Yes, great, thank you. And it sounds like you listed a lot of things that also might come up in this thematic China week. One issue I know the committee looked at was China PNTR and whether we should revoke or revisit it in some way. Where did you guys come down, and what is your current thinking on where that issue is?
Well, I think there was a bipartisan consensus. We're not revoking PNTR. However, we're also acknowledging reality, which is that we are not in normal trade relations with the Chinese because of their counterproductive approach to trade, especially their dumping, for instance. We've had to take countermeasures, right, in any number of places. And so we're kind of in the situation where we're kind of out of PNTR right now because of the tariff situation. And I personally think President Trump was right to impose tariffs and for President Biden to continue until we can see some change in their behavior. I'm not really sure when that's going to happen. I'll just close by saying on PNTR, we did take a position that China should be treated specially. Although we don't want to revoke, we're not calling for revocation of PNTR. We also think that with regard to some other countries, we should look at how do we trade more with them. Because we want to create a situation where our friends, partners, and allies who are observing the rules of the road should be part of closer ties with us, whether it's Taiwan or others. But Darren's the expert on this, and I defer to him. But I just want to say thank you to all of you for everything, and thank you to Darren for your friendship. And I really look forward to talking to you guys again. So thank you. Thank you.
Written questions can be submitted to Raja. So. Ralph, I'll just pick up on your comment on PNTR. I represent a district that's heavy ag district, obviously, and probably 30% of the corn and soybeans grown in my district go to China every year, and so my farmers directly rely on that relationship. And so when we were going through this debate and dialogue and discussion on PNTR, it was a very good one and constructive one, but there was pushback, obviously, from other members of the committee, Dusty Johnson, Jake Auckland-Koss, Ashley Hinson, myself, on making sure that we don't go too far here. And so I think if you look at how we structured the report and our recommendation, there's a number of triggering mechanisms that are in place that if a number of these things don't happen, then we would maybe look at PNTR. And the only other observation I would make, if you go back and look at the when we allowed China into the WTO 22, 23 years ago, the argument at the time was bring China into the World Trade Organization. They're going to modernize their economy. They're going to become more like us. They're going to democratize. They're going to play in the sandbox with everybody else. And what we found is they don't play by the same rules and standards that every other industrialized country in the world has done. They've manipulated the World Trade Organization in many ways. And manipulated a lot of other global entities too. And so, so there's immense frustration with that, of them not complying and not being observant to what everybody else does. So how do you hold them accountable? What are the mechanisms? What are the tools? So obviously PNTR is one of those, but again, you got to thread that needle the right way and make sure that we're not hurting our own industries. So that's the thought process.